Okay, so this is a recap for Wednesday, April 24th. The market, it started off pretty choppy. Like the whole first hour at least of the morning session was definitely back and forth. And when it's, doing this and there's no clear direction, really the best thing, right, is to just sit on your hands and stay out of it. That's way easier said than done. But I was pretty pleased I stayed out of all of this morning. So that was good. I was just waiting at this point for there to be a clear decision, meaning that something was really clear, or for it to break out either above resistance or beneath support. So you can see it's already 8:30, market's been open for an hour, and still nothing had happened. Finally, it did break lower. So I just entered on the backside of that retest of that prior support area right here. This was a nice trade, pretty close pivot to pivot. So 13 and a quarter points on three contracts. That brought me just over $1,900. This was the best part of the whole day. It just kind of fell apart after that. But this was a good trade. I was also looking at this here more specifically. So again, this is a 2440 tick. It's just a little bit more of a macro view. And you can see this was the morning chop, and then here is where it broke out. So at this point, I was honestly expecting a retest of the median line here. And if it broke that, then I was expecting it to come retest this pivot line, which eventually it did at the very, very end of the session. So that's kind of what I was watching. And then after this, market continued down lower here. It hit a prior level. Let's see, yeah, just right here. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to take it there. That's kind of what I was going for. I was also watching the NASDAQ, which I should have gone back somewhere in here. It hit a prior pivot also. Um, let's see. So that was at 9:30 about. So 9:30 here. Yeah, so right here it was working beneath it. That one had already passed through, but I was good with that. Took it, which was a good thing. It had a deeper pullback here. At this point, I still did have that short bias, right? I was expecting it to move lower, so I was just waiting for another entry on the short side. So I took the same trade here that I took here. Essentially, it broke beneath the support level, and when it pulled back to retest it, I entered that short here. Timing of a BO entry, so that's just an abbreviation for breakout. I just put a couple little notes on here because they were things that I wanted to talk about. So you could see here as the market was pulling back to retest that support area, it was coming back pretty strong. The bar right before the one I entered on was very strong. It closed at the top. So I wasn't just going to immediately enter because it was on the backside of this area. I wanted to see some type of reaction here, which it immediately gave a reversal bar. So at that point, I was like, okay, I'm entering. Came down to the prior pivot with no continuation here. I was still expecting a continuation down. So I was like, okay, well, as long as it stays beneath the support area, then I'm just going to continue holding it. I did reduce my stop a little bit because typically if a market doesn't continue on the other side of an area and it breaks back on the inside, a lot of times you're going to find a good trade there to the opposite direction. So I didn't want to be short at that point anymore if it came back that far, which it did. I wasn't willing to go long here because I did have a much stronger expectation to the downside. So I was just waiting again for another short entry when it broke back beneath this mid band and then back beneath the support level. I did re-enter here again. Same thing, stopped me out. I probably reduced my stop a little bit too much on this one. It was right in the area instead of behind it. So I got stopped out, unfortunately. And then again, same idea here, but just on a smaller scale. Re-entered here, expecting more of a continuation. And at this point, it just didn't happen. So lost quite a few points here. You can see there were profits in each trade. That was something else that I wanted to talk about. So, you know, you have to pick a kind of trading style that works for you. And so for me, it's like, okay, well, if I take 3 points out of every trade, 3 or 4 points, sure, that'd be over 10 points here. But I have found that for me personally, if the market continued on to that original target that I had or that original expectation, and I got out for such a small amount of profit, I'm going to be really upset. And over time, with the way that I trade, I would just have a really hard time getting ahead doing that. So that's why I don't take such small profit unless, unless I see a reason for the market reversing. Now, here, it wasn't really continuing. But like I said, I had that expectation. So I was just willing to hold those trades. And then here, something definitely sparked it. It had a reaction all the way back up. There was really no good trades, at least for me, in this whole run to the upside. You can see the 20 SMA, a lot of times it'll hold shallow pullbacks. So you can see that here, it's just kind of bouncing along there. I will take those trades, but not in a situation like this, because here you really have no idea how much further it's going to go or when it's going to pull back. There was, no prominent area in here or level that I was really watching. So I was like, well, I'm just going to wait. It came up here. And at this point, this is where I probably should have just sat on my hands a little bit better. You get into positions where, you could make a statement for, or a case, I should say, for the market to go either direction. And when something like that happens, it's typically best to just sit it out. And I knew that, but, I went ahead and tried to trade it anyway. But you can see here, we made that high, right? And then we came down, we didn't quite reach that, that prior pivot that I was expecting. But then when the market went higher, it still left a lower high, and then it moved lower and it left a higher low, and then it moved higher, left a lower high. So all of this right here, like honestly, I could make a case for either direction at this point. And if I'm able to do that, then that's a good indication that I should just sit the market out. However, I was already in the hole, and I had been up almost 2 grand already on the morning. So you got to be careful too, because you have to learn to let prior trades or prior days just be in the past and go into every trade and every day with like a completely open and new experience. So you can't bring in past losses or wins into new trades, because it's going to jade the way that you look at them. Easier said than done again, but let's just get to the trade. So this one reversed here. At this point, I'm like, okay, well, that was pretty strong run to the upside. I expected at least a retest of this pivot here, or this new resistance level up here. So I did jump on that long. This was a pretty strong reaction right here. So easily could have gone back up here. Not the worst trade, but it just wasn't the best one either. And then this here went ahead and put me in the red. So I had lost that initial trade all through here. This one put me down a little bit. This one here, I tried that same thing again. I just still had that bias that it was going to come and retest this level up here. Just didn't happen. I tried that one more time here, and when it wasn't going, I just exited on that break even. At this point, I was like, okay, well, this is strong enough momentum to the downside. Maybe we're going to come back and retest this low, right? So again, I can still make a case for either direction. So I shouldn't be trading here at all. I did drop my contract size through this. So I took an 8-point trade here, which, I mean, it looks nice, right? It's pivot to pivot on 2 contracts, brought me back to just, I think, right around break even. And then here I was still expecting a downward move, so I took it on that breakout of the support here. Just didn't happen. And like I mentioned on that earlier breakout trade, I should have waited for some kind of reaction here, right? Because if I had waited on a reaction here on this support level, then I would have avoided that loss altogether. But I just went ahead and entered, got immediately punished for it. Same thing up here. I was like, okay, well, I should have been in at that first outer band trade here, which was okay. I mean, expectation at this point was here. So I was expecting, a retest of this median line, most likely. It just didn't happen. But when I didn't take this trade, I'm like, oh, well, then you start second guessing. I'm like, I'm going to take it anyway. Re-entered at a worse price. And then the market just continued to push above me. And yeah, that was just me talking about how I thought I missed the trade. And here it wasn't really a good idea, because as you can see, it reacted off of this 20 SMA to the upside, which is a good indicator to, hey, maybe stay out of that. But I obviously didn't listen. So the market pushed higher. Here, I really expected, again, just a retest of this level up here, which just didn't happen. And there was some profit in this trade, but like I said, when you're expecting more, I typically just don't bail. I did reduce my stop here, which thankfully got filled here before the market really crashed to the downside. If this hadn't happened and a move like this happens, there's a really good chance that if you're in a trade, you're going to get slippage on your stop or your target. So I was glad that this happened after I was out of the trade. Again, today was 11 trades, 2 to 5 contracts. Over 21 points won, one break even, 20 points lost. So net was just under a point, but because of the variation in the contract size, that definitely put me in the red. So that was a losing day of just under $1,900. And then CNF is for commissions and fees, so that hasn't calculated yet. There's probably around 150 bucks in commission fees that's going to go on top of that. So all in all, not the worst day, but definitely not the best day. It's a good reminder of all the things not to do, and to not trade on tilt. You know, when you start going in the red, it's really easy to just increase your contract size and start, pulling the trigger on all kinds of trades because you're just so desperate to get out of the red or to get back to break even. And you just really have to watch that mental. I saw another trader earlier today that I follow, and he put trading is just managing frustration. So I wanted to put that on here because that is most definitely what it is. So anyway, reach out if you have any questions, and we'll see what tomorrow holds.